Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm Sarah Liz and I have another emergency card kit for you this month. We are going to be making this card template, which is one of my all-time favorites. I've been making this one for a really long time. It's a little bit of a fun fold, but all the measurements are really easy. So we'll go through that together and I will show you the cutting guide that is in your free printable. We will also talk about this foiling detail right here. That is also in the free printable, and I'm going to show you how to do it later in the video, so stay tuned for that. If you are new to the channel, an emergency card is one where we leave the sentiment off. Every month I come out with a card sketch and a set of sentiments that you can use to add to cards later. So I wait until I know who the card is for, I pick out a card design that they might like, and then I can add a sentiment. All the sentiments are 1 3/4 of an inch. And they are in the free printable for you to use. So here is our printable for the month. We are tackling Get Well cards. I loved this one. If there's ever a time to give someone a laugh and lift their spirits, it's when they're not feeling very good. So there are 6 sentiments on here that are sweet and thoughtful, big squishy get well hugs, wishing you sunshine and a speedy recovery, hoping this note will brighten your day. But then the other sentiments are, I think, pretty funny. So may this ridiculously expensive vacation truly be once in a lifetime. Being bionic isn't easy. I'm sorry your body has betrayed you. Welp, it's not really surprising that you managed this weird and extraordinary feat. Boobs are stupid and overrated. So each of these is going to be 1 3/4 of an inch, and then that circle is just outside of that 1 3/4 inches. I like to use an EK Success punch to punch them out. I just switch the lever to open that up, and then when I stick this in here to cut them out, I just wiggle it until I can't see that black circle anymore, and I know that it's centered. However, if your punch or your die is not quite that same size, the second page of this printable is going to show you the same sentiments, but they don't have a circle around them. So sometimes I'll use a hexagon. Today we're going to use a scalloped circle. You could use that just for the sentiment and not for the matte layer, right? So here's my pink matte layer. You could cut the sentiment out of that. That would work too. Then we have an overview of the card sketch. This is printed to scale. So if I put my card on top of that, it is going to be exactly the same size. And hopefully that helps you if you're struggling with placement of any of those pieces. And then it's going to give you the measurements for each of those pieces. Finally, on the last page of the printable for this month, this is how I got that foiled detail on this purple card. I used a laser printer to print this out, and so that's toner on there. That's not like inkjet stuff that's going to smear. And there are instructions on how to cut this out. I will show you that. And then I ran this through my Minc machine, which is just a fancy laminator with some Deco foil, and used that to dress up the side. You don't have to use this piece or add foil to your project, but I thought it was a fun way to add a little something extra to these cards. To make today's card project, I'm going to start with a card base that is 7.5 inches by 5.5 inches. This is a little shorter than a standard card base, and that's how we're going to get this little open area on the side here. We are going to score that at 4 1/4 inches along the long edge. So I'm going to place that into my scoreboard, and I'm going to score at 4 1/4. That's the same place you would score if you were making a standard A2 card. It's just that now we have this little fun fold feature. And I'm going to crease that really well. Next, I'm going to bring in this purple matte layer. And it is 2 5/8 by 5.5. So that's this pink piece here. And then a piece of pattern paper that is 2.5 by 5. So here's my pattern paper. And really the trick here is that they're both 5.5 inches, and that pink piece is just 1/8 of an inch wider than the pattern paper. You could certainly do 1/4 inch if you prefer. If you look down in the paper saver section, it says this template coordinates well with volume 3. If you remember volume 3, we cut off a whole bunch of strips of pattern paper in order to make a 3¼ inch wide diagonal cut piece of pattern paper. And I was like, hang on to those, we'll use those. They work really well for this, okay? So if you look at the size here, you would be cutting off just a tiny little strip on the side here. And if you wanted, this is nearly the same size as that pink piece. If you've got some coordinating papers, you could use one piece for your matte layer and then another piece for your pattern paper. So I'm going to go ahead and glue my pattern paper to my matte layer. If you're interested in the paper, this is Stampin' Up paper. I've had this, I don't know, for a little while. And I checked with my friend Penny, my local Stampin' Up dealer, and she said they still have it in stock. So I will link to Penny's shop below if you are looking for this paper. They still have it right now, but I think they're about to change catalogs, so they might not have it for a lot longer. Now that I have that matted, I am going to add that to the front of my card, and I am just centering that right between the two sides, okay? So I'm using my wet glue because my aim is not great. This will let me wiggle it around a little bit while I try and get that situated on my card. Just gonna do my best and then pick that up and get that right in the middle, okay? So now we have our card base and then the pattern paper and matte layer. Okay, we're started. We've got a good start. My next piece is this flagged strip. And so I have a piece of cardstock that is 7 3/4 by 1 1/4. And I'm going to bring out my scoreboard again, and I am going to score that at 4 1/4. If you don't have a scoreboard, that's okay, right? You could just wrap this around your card and that would work fine as well. Okay, so I'm going to fold that in half. I also want to cut a flag into the short end of this. Okay, so this is going to come across my card like this. I would eyeball this, but I don't do so great when I eyeball things. So I'm grabbing my pencil and I'm just kind of centering this. So I have the same amount of cardstock on either side of that 1 inch line. And I'm going to come up, I don't know, maybe a 1/2 inch. And right in the middle, I'm just putting a little pencil mark, and I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut right up the middle. My goal now, let me maybe put this behind it so you can see a little better, is to start in the corner and cut to that middle point. So I am just removing a triangle. Then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm starting in the corner and I'm cutting to the middle. And now I have a flag that's pretty even, okay? That is going to wrap around my card, okay? And that's, I don't know, maybe 1 inch up. Wherever it looks good to you. You could put it up top, you could put it in the middle, like it's your card. I'm gonna hold this in place and flip it over. My piece here is going to wrap almost all the way around the back. I like it that way. I think it looks a little more finished. If you wanted to conserve paper, you wouldn't have to. You certainly could cut a shorter piece, okay, so that this is just coming, I don't know, like a 1/2 inch in. All right. So there's my flag. Next, I'm going to add, this says a 2 inch sentiment circle mat. And you can put just a plain circle here. With these florals, I really liked the idea of adding a scalloped circle. And so this is from Sunny Studios. They have a set of nesting scalloped circles. And I've used that one. I've used it a whole bunch and my sentiments fit just perfectly into the middle of those. Okay. And I like that detail on here, but use whatever you have. Again, like this isn't about buying a whole bunch of new stuff. It's whatever you have in your stash. Certainly there is also an EK Success circle punch that is 2 inches. I love punches because they're faster. And if I'm making cards in bulk, that helps. Okay. All right. So now all I need to do is add a white piece to the inside of my card. So this last piece is this white inside layer. It is 4 by 5 1/4, and it will fit perfectly in the middle. And there will be just a little border on all 4 sides. Okay. I have made many cards with just a plain piece of white paper on the inside, or you could put a different strip of pattern paper on the inside. But I want to show you a couple other options. One of the things I like to do is add a decorative edge. So this is a border die. You guys, I've had this for so long. It's just in a folder in my bin that says border dies. I have no idea where it came from. But this one cuts a scalloped edge that can go right along the inside of your card, and it just dresses it up a little bit. Again, since I don't know where that one came from, I will link to something similar below. There are lots of companies that make border dies like this. But I also want to show you how we can use page 4 of our printable to make something really, really special. This is page 4, and it has this dotted detail clear down the center. And this is what I used to create that foiling detail on my card. So I am going to begin by cutting 1/2 inch off of the side, and where that text is, it's telling you to cut that 1/2 inch off of it. Next, I'm going to cut this in half, both directions. So first, I'm going to cut this at 4 inches, right? It was 8.5 inches across, and we removed 1/2 inch. So I am going to cut this at 4. And it should cut it right down the middle. Okay. Next, I'm going to rotate it. And this is still an 11-inch piece of cardstock, so I'm going to cut it at 5.5. Okay. You'll notice that on either side, it doesn't print all the way to the edge. Almost all printers do that. Okay. And so I am just going to trim off that little bit, and it's going to depend on your printer. So mine, I want to keep it as big as I can. And I am going to cut that. So mine is just a little over 5 1/4. Okay. I could put it into my card like this if I wanted, but I want to show you how to foil it if you're interested. This is the Heidi Swapp mini Minc machine. It is a very fancy laminator. The difference between this and a regular laminator is that I can choose the heat setting, and this one provides a little more pressure than a regular laminator. If you already have a laminator, try it. See how it goes. Keep in mind that the paper you're printing on matters. I printed mine on Hammermill 80-pound super smooth cardstock. The toner matters, right? So this is toner, not an inkjet. And I printed it on like photo quality printing. You could certainly take it to like a UPS store or a FedEx Kinko's, and they can print it for you. And the pressure matters. So I have tried to foil in my regular laminator, and it needs shims, and it still doesn't come out quite as well as it does on my mini Minc. So I like this one, but you don't need to have this one. I should also note that I removed the black mat that normally sits on my desk. This can get pretty hot, and I didn't want it to warp my mat. If it were just here for like one foiling, it would be fine, I think, but I didn't want to risk it. I am going to use Deco foil. Deco foil is different than like glimmer foil because this does not have adhesive in it. Like a glimmer foil, like the stuff you get from Spellbinders, has adhesive built in, so you can end up with foil where you don't want it if you use the wrong foil. So I'm using this one, and I only need enough foil to cover the edge here. So I am just going to hold that in place, and I will use my scissors to trim that down. Sorry, I don't want to like hold it over the Minc and cause myself some problems. The Minc comes with this plastic carrier sheet, but I don't use it. It's really thin. You can see how it kind of warps. The benefit of that thinness is that you get more heat and pressure to your project, but I find that my foil sometimes wrinkles up. So instead, this is a piece of heavyweight white cardstock, and I am just going to stick this in there and make sure the foil is covering all of that toner. And then I will sandwich that closed, and I'm going to run it through my machine. When I take this out, I want to make sure that my cardstock has cooled before I pull that foil off. So the reason foiling works is because toner is like little pieces of plastic on your paper. And when you run it through the laminator, it melts that plastic and the foil sticks to it. So I want that toner to cool so the plastic hardens and is going to stick to my foil. I'm going to pull back just a corner. And actually I have spots where I don't think all the foil stuck down as well as I want. So I'm going to raise the heat one notch, and I am just going to run that right back through. That is something you can do as long as you don't pull the foil all the way off, or at least it works better that way. All right, let's peel that back. And that is super pretty. You see that? And you can do that with your sentiments too. I showed foiling or a foiled sentiment in the very first emergency card kit. So I definitely wanted to show you how I do this in case you are interested. I don't do it all the time, but it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. Now that I have my foiled panel, I'm going to take this one step further, and I am going to add a scalloped border. I'm just going to line that up so I have the same amount hanging off of either side. So I kind of center it. And I am going to tape this down, but I'm going to be really careful. I don't want to put tape over the foil that I want to keep because it can pull the foil up. Okay, so I'm just adding a couple little pieces, and then I will run that through my die cut machine. All right, so here is my die cut piece, but then there's also this little piece left over. And I'm going to save that. I want to put that on the inside of one of my cards. So I could put that, if that was just plain white, I could put that right there. Right? Or maybe if there weren't that scalloped edge, it could go like this. So I can get kind of 2 for 1 out of that. So let's finish up this card. This is a little bit of a wonky size between the die cutting and the foiling and trimming off just the bare minimum. So, you know, wet glue. Wet glue is the answer to everything. Then I can wiggle this around. I can make sure that it's kind of centered in there, and that it's in a good spot so you can see it when the card is closed. And that is my card. If you are interested in the free printable with this foilable page, along with the 16 sentiments, the card template, and all the measurements, all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. So click the subscribe button and then go down to the bottom of the description box below the video. You'll click more or show more, and you'll find it linked at the very bottom. I have also included links to some of my favorite stores. They are affiliate links, and I sure do appreciate when you use them. If you do, the store pays me a small commission from the sale, and that just helps me to bring you more free content. It doesn't cost you anything, and it sure does help me out. Until next time, happy crafting, and I will see you then.